Hey guys, and welcome to my next Slayer guide. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to slay Mithril Dragons. Now, I've seen quite a lot of people asking for this in the past, but it's finally arrived now. It's time for the Mithril Dragons, and I'm going to show you a few setups. You don't have to have Rapier, and Rapier isn't actually the most efficient way to kill them. There'll be 3 methods using the Polypore, which I'm sure everyone can afford. It's not too expensive at all. Meleeing, which can either be in a high level setup or in a mid level setup. I'm going to show you both the setups, but the method is the same. And then the last setup, which is a Storm of Armadyl, which is the most efficient way to kill Mithril Dragons and is very, very fast indeed. So first of all, I'm going to give you some information about the Mithril Dragons. Now, they're combat level 304, which is extremely high. If you think about it, the Caliphate Queen is level 333, and you think about how tough that is. You should not underestimate Mithril Dragons. You must be prepared when you're going there, because if you're not, they can easily kill you very quickly if you don't know what you're doing. They don't have a Slayer requirement to kill, so anyone can kill them. Life points is 2,540, meaning they give a juicy amount of XP per kill, and you can take them down very, very quickly if you're using Storm of Armadyl. The level 304 combat also makes them very, very good effigy droppers in comparison to other tasks, and used to be very good effigies per hour if you Stormed of Armadyl them. However, obviously that's been decreased since the nerf. However, you should still see quite a few effigies here, although the tasks are rather small. But the tasks have been updated. Like, if you only slayed these back in the past when you only got like 6, they updated it not so long ago to give like 25 to 30. So you should see quite a lot of Mithril Dragons in one task now. So that's pretty epic. It attacks with all attack styles, including Fire Breath. So this is why you should not underestimate them. You have to equip your gear accordingly, because they will hit you with magic, range and melee, and as long as you've got super anti-fire pot, you'll be fine for the Fire Breath. But if you haven't got super anti-fire pot, you want to be taking regular anti-fire with an anti-dragon shield or a dragon fire shield, depending if you're maging or meleeing. So to go into the familiars that you can use, there's 3 that I recommend. Now, if you haven't got 88 summoning, I recommend the War Tortoise. Now, the reason for this is that you can take some food in it, and you're going to need the food because you will get damaged quite a lot by the Mithril Dragons. So you're definitely going to need a full tortoise of like sharks or rocktail or something that's going to keep you alive, because you will get hit for quite a lot of damage. And if you're this low level, not to have a unicorn, you might struggle with this task, and you might have to make multiple trips. The next familiar that I recommend, and this is the familiar that I'd use when killing Mithril Dragons, is the Spirit Unicorn. This is because it is basically infinite food in one invent space, and although it's limited use, you can easily use it to survive. If you're in the high level setup, which will be not using Ganodermic, because in the lower level setup you use Ganodermic and free range to tank most of the hits, but in the high level setup you'll be using your full Bandos or full Torva, and you'll be tanking most of the hits, and you will take more damage like that. However, you'll have to have Soul Split if you're using that method, because then the Unicorn will not be enough. But the Unicorn is a great familiar to use here, and the one I definitely recommend. However, for those of you that want to make money, the Yak is definitely the way to go, because obviously the Mithril Dragons drop Dragon Bones, and they also drop quite a few rune items that you might want to bank. So having the Yak with the Winter Storage Scroll is definitely a bonus if you're looking to make money. You cannot expect to see the Dragonfall Helm drop because it is incredibly rare, so do not expect to think you'll make profit anyway, because you're not going to see one. Now, obviously it's possible to see one, but I'm just going to say it is literally almost impossible. I've had 2 in the past, but I've killed a lot of Mithril Dragons. One was from Chewed Bones and one from a drop. If you don't know what the Chewed Bones are, the Mithril Dragons have a special drop called Chewed Bones, and these Chewed Bones can be burned on a pyre ship to give a chance at some loot. And a Dragonfall Helm is a lot more common from that. However, you got to get the Chewed Bones first, and that is a relatively rare drop from the Mithril Dragon. So I'm going to move into the first setup, which will be the Polypore setup. Right, so for the first setup, the Polypore setup, I recommend this for low levels. However, obviously any gear that I've got you can simply downgrade to anything that you have got. So Ganodermic is definitely the way to go. This is due to the fact that the Ganodermic has insanely high mage defense and melee defense. So the mage defense obviously has a huge absorption even if you get hit, so that's why putting range in this, you will take a lot less damage. You can obviously use arrows, but you will be taking more damage. If you can use Virtus, then I'd definitely use Virtus. However, you will definitely take more damage, and I imagine you'll be high level if you're in that gear anyway, so you should have no problem. But as for the rest of your gear, it's just simple, common sense. Arcane Stream Necklace if you have it, if not, just a Fury will suffice. A Slayer helmet, just because you're on Slayer, quite obviously. Obviously, you need your Polypore staff, I better check that. That's enough charges. For your boots, you can use Infinity boots if you haven't got Rage Fire boots. However, Rage Fire Boots are relatively cheap compared to their Steadfast and Glaven counterparts. For your ring, an Onyx ring eye will be very good. However, if you haven't got this, a Seer's ring will be great. For your cape, obviously a completionist cape or a max cape will be amazing. If you have, obviously, I doubt most people have these. So what you want to use is a god cape, like either a Zami cape, Guthix cape, or turn my pale off, or a Sara cape that you can get from the little mage arena place in the wilderness that you created that little statue thing for. For your gloves, I'm just going to use Goliath gloves. However, if you don't want to use anything that degrades, you can simply use, obviously, Barrow's gloves, which I'm sure, or your highest recipe for disaster gloves. As for your invent, you want your regular top row and bottom row. Now, instead of claws for your spec weapon, if you're in this setup, I'd recommend just using an enhanced Excalibur, because it's going to help with your healing, and your maging anyway, a special weapon isn't going to be too helpful. However, I'll use a different special weapon in the later setups. Then you want your Ferocious Ring and your Slayer Ring, but these are standard things to have in your invent. This is just to check how many tasks you've got, and also the Ferocious Ring you can use to teleport to Kuradel if you have enough rings, and you wouldn't use them otherwise. I will be using a Unicorn Familiar, so hence I've got Unicorn Scrolls. However, if you're not using a Unicorn, obviously, if you're using a Tortoise, the Scrolls aren't important, because you will not need to use the Scrolls. If you've got a Yak, obviously you want your Winter Storage Scrolls. I'm going to take 2 Super Anti-Fires. Now, that should be full. I'm just using this because I've got it. And then you want 2 Perennials. Generally, you want the same amount of Perennials as Super Anti-Fires. I doubt you'll use all of these, depending on the size of your task. But you just want to be safe. You don't want to run out. Then you just need some prayer pots, because you're going to be praying during the task. So you definitely want to have them to go along with your Perennials. However, you should use very few of your Perennials in this setup. Then you just want to have your Vecna Skull for your Mage boost. Now, obviously, you can take Extreme Mages or just a Mage pot if you haven't got a Vecna Skull, but I definitely get a Vecna Skull. It's a very good item and it's quite cheap. Then I would take a few spare food in your invent just in case, especially if you haven't got a Unicorn and you're using a Tortoise full of food. And Soul Split is going to help. I would definitely be on the curses if you have got curses, and because the Soul Split is such a boost that it's definitely worth doing, especially doing Slayer when it actually takes time to change as well. If you haven't got curses, obviously you've got the benefit of being able to use the big mage boost prayers. On the bottom row of your invent, you obviously want your Tuckhole Zoo for your teleporting to this bank, which is next to a fairy ring, which is quick access to them. You'll have my cannonballs there because they're simply there all the time because most tasks are cannon. Dragon's Medallion for quick access to blood vials, and then house tabs so I can bank to get prayer and summoning from my obelisk. Now, you can obviously have your cannon on your invent, because when slaying, normally you have your cannon in your invent at all times, because most tasks you will be slaying. However, you can bank it if you wish. If you're a higher level player and you want to be slaying fast as possible, you can easily keep your cannon in your invent to save time banking it. However, it's not really much effort to bank and withdraw after. So I'm just going to get a Unicorn out, and then I'll head on the way to Mithril Dragons. Right, so I've got my Unicorn now, because I don't want to forget that. Nearly forgot it, and I just want to head to the obvious place of Kuradel's dungeon. Now obviously I will not be going in Kuradel's dungeon, but that is where I want to head. And I want to head to the fairy ring code BJQ. Now if you haven't set this fairy ring up, you obviously have to buy some Bittercat mushrooms and use them on this fairy ring to fill it up. Now you'll teleport into quite a dangerous place. You want to drink your anti-fire before you run east, because there's brutal green dragons, and you want to pray mage so that you don't take any damage from the stupid magic attack. So you want to head up these stairs, and when you head up you want to pray range, because the Mithril Dragons will wreck you through Gano if you're not praying range. And there's perfect 2 spawns here and here. Now as you can see, this guy is actually killing that one already, but this is the location where you'd kill them. I would stand approximately here, kill this one and this one. However, this guy is here, so I can't really do that, so I'm going to head over to the other spawns, which are over here. So as you can see, I'm not taking much damage. The only damage you'll take if you're using Super Anti-Fire is from the mage attack. If you're not using Super Anti-Fire, you definitely want to obviously not have a mage's book. You want to have an Anti-Fire shield or a Dragonfire shield. But if you're maging, definitely the Anti-Fire shield, because the Dragonfire shield actually has negative bonuses for your magic. So obviously you want to boost your magic, and then you want to put your magic boost prayers on, and so you can do the extra damage. You can flick Soul Split if you want, which is going to easily aid you. However, you should be perfectly fine. The Ganademic makes this a lot much easier than it used to be. If you're using like Arams, it was so much more difficult. However, obviously if you're using Virtus, you'll still have the similar problem, but you should be fine, definitely in this setup, and have no problem at all completing your task. Obviously I want to drink my Perennial before I forget. and it's as simple as this for this setup. The Storm of Armadyl setup I'm going to show you later is very, very similar, and obviously you'll just be using a different spell, and hence you'll be using a different staff. So you want to make sure you avoid melee distance, because quite clearly you'll get attacked with melee. However, Ganademic does have good melee defense, which is why you're going to be using it in the low level melee setup if you've got a rapier as well. So they do drop quite a lot of rune items, and they do drop dragon bones, so that's why I said the yak is a very good item to use, a very good familiar to use, because of the simple fact that you can bank all this stuff and make some decent money off the task. You can take Sara Brews, however these cost quite a lot, and it's definitely worth using sharks instead. Obviously you can use overloads if you wish. So I'm going to go into the low level melee setup now, because there's not much else to say about this. It's quite self-explanatory what you do, but this is slower. I'd say this is slower than melee, but Storm of Armadyl will be faster than melee. Right guys, so for the lower level Slayer setup, this is what I'd recommend using. It's not much change from the last setup. Obviously you've just switched your weapons and stuff. You obviously want your Steadfast Boots instead of Rage Fire, or Dragon Boots if you haven't got Steadfast. You obviously want your Fury, and if you haven't got Super Anti-Fires, which are these things here, you want to use a Dragonfire Shield, or if you can't afford a Dragonfire Shield, a simple Anti-Fire Shield will suffice. Your weapon has got to be a rapier effectively. If you haven't got a rapier, I'd recommend using a mage setup, and that is pretty much all I need to say about that. Now for your invent, obviously you need extreme strengths and attacks instead of your Reckoner skill for mage boosts, and other than that you still want to keep it effectively the same. If you haven't got Soul Split, you want to be taking food in your invent definitely with your unicorn, as it will be a lot more tough to survive. In this setup you're going to be playing range. So I'm going to get the Mithril Dragons, and you already know how to get there. So right, so I'm just about to arrive at Mithril Dragons. So just running past the Brutals, and again just pre-range when you go up there. So meleeing is going to be much faster than this. So as you can see, there's a Maxcape player there doing the same method I just showed you. Obviously he's not rich enough because he's in infinity boots and things, so he's obviously quite poor for a max player. So anyway, you want to drink your extremes or your super pots if you haven't got extremes. Perennial Berserker if you want to use Berserker. Obviously you have to be on curses for that, and you will take a lot more damage in this setup. As you can see, it hits with melee quite hard, and it will use it quite frequently, so you will be taking a lot more damage. Unicorn might not always be enough, so as you can see, you're taking quite a lot of damage, quite a few hits. If you're in the mage setup, if you saw that, you'll be taking, as you see, in effect, very, very few hits. Obviously that soul split flicking, it really helps, and this is the difference between using Ganademic. If you want to use your full bandos for faster killing, you will have to have soul split, because unless you take enough food, you will struggle to survive, and because it does do a lot of damage to you, and your unicorn does run out of specials eventually, and obviously if that happens, you're screwed. So this setup, using Ganademic, you should be perfectly fine using just unicorn, and you should easily survive. This is all you want to do. Obviously you can use Excalibur if you don't want to use a special weapon. You can take a special weapon if you want. I'm going to use this enhanced Excalibur in this setup because I don't want to run out of food. Obviously I would be on prayers generally if I was using this setup, so I'm not going to have the bonus of soul split, so the Excalibur is really going to help. However, if you want to use a special weapon, definitely the Karasi is a better choice than claws, because claws are generally inaccurate because of the slash style. Although you can use a stab claw stack, but it's not very good because claws have a huge slash bonus rather than stab. So as you can see, I'm killing them a lot faster than I was in the previous method, so you will get your tasks done faster like this, and even faster if you use bandos. However, in the bandos setup, you will effectively kill them the exact same way, the exact same setup. However, you'll definitely want to have a Karasi there instead to help you kill them faster, because you're going for fast kills, and obviously you'll just switch to Ganademic out for bandos. However, the setup is generally exactly the same. Your test will be even faster though, and you definitely need to have soul split. So I don't really need to go into that method, as it's quite self-explanatory what you need to do. So I'm not going to show you the setup because it's literally exactly the same virtually. So now I'm going to go into the Storm of Armadyl setup, which is going to give you the fastest, your fastest Myth Dragon kills that you can possibly get in game. The one thing I want to mention though, that if you are using your bandos setup, is that you want to be playing melee rather than range, because obviously Ganademic is extremely high melee and mage absorption defense, so that is why you play range in this setup, as I'd be doing now. However, in bandos you want to play melee because its melee defense is much lower than this, so you will get hit quite a lot if you play mage, which you would do in bandos, by the fact that it's got no mage defense. So gonna show you the Storm of Armadyl setup. So just quickly then, the Storm of Armadyl setup. The only difference with your gear is that you want to have your chaotic staff instead of Polypore. If you haven't got a chaotic staff, a staff of light is a great choice because it will save you some runes and still has a good mage damage bonus. So you obviously want your Vecna Skull again for your mage level boost. Obviously you can use overloads instead. This time you're going to need your Armadyl runes because you will be using the Armadyl storm spell, so we want to have that on auto cast so that you're ready to fire it. The rest of the gear is exactly the same. However, obviously if you haven't got super anti-fires, you want an anti-fire shield. So I'm just going to quickly show you the little difference in speed. Right guys, so I've arrived at Mithril Dragons, and again you want to have prey range, you want your mage boost on your berserker if you're using a boost that's not overloads. You want to use your Vecna Skull and then use just attack as you know. Now as you can see, I'm actually not on a slay task, so the speed will actually be faster for all the methods. But look at this, you tear it apart completely. In this setup you can easily use a Karasi, I'd say. Because you're going to take a lot less damage because you kill them so incredibly fast. If you want to use a special weapon, that is. You can use an enhanced Excalibur still if you wish. It's totally up to you. You can even still use claws if you wish. However, an enhanced Excalibur is better. A Karasi is better than Dragon Claws. So there's no difference to this than the Polypore setup. However, obviously the speed that I'm killing these is so much quicker. And as you can see, this is definitely faster than melee. This totally owns these dragons. It's the same for Iron Dragons and Steel Dragons. The mage setups will definitely own the melee setups there. However, Polypore isn't too effective here because it just isn't accurate enough on these dragons. So it's as simple as that, guys, and there's nothing else more to it. And I hope if you didn't know how to kill Myth Dragons, this has helped you. If not, let me know. Well, if not, it's probably because you already know how to, but I hope the guide was helpful, guys. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy the guide and find it helpful, because it is really special to me if people thumbs up the video, because it's always like, wow, people actually like the video. And I'd like a fair representation of people. If you don't like the video, obviously give it a dislike, because I do want a fair representation of people that like it or dislike it. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video.